Do you ever feel stuck in a loop? You swear you're going to break a bad habit, but a week later, you're right back where you started. It feels like a personal failure, but the reality playing out inside your head is an entirely physical process. For centuries, the scientific consensus held a rather bleak view of adulthood. The assumption was that once you passed childhood, the structure of your brain was poured and set like concrete. You were stuck with the mind you had. Then, functional imaging arrived. Once scientists could actually observe the living brain at work, they realized the rigid concrete theory was wrong. Adult brains are continuously physically adapting in real time. This process is called synaptic plasticity. Think of it like walking through a dense forest. The first time you take a route, it's difficult. But if you walk that exact same path every single day, it clears out, widens, and becomes effortless to navigate. In your brain, repeating a behavior physically thickens and strengthens those specific neural connections. This efficiency is why habits are so difficult to break. Your brain doesn't distinguish between a healthy routine and a destructive one. It simply optimizes for the path you take most often. Overriding these loops requires the physical construction of a new neural architecture. When you set out to rewrite a habit, you rely on 3 specific regions of your brain working together to process new information and adapt to your environment. Deep inside is the amygdala, your emotional processing center, responsible for evaluating threats and triggering fear responses. Sitting opposite is your prefrontal cortex, handling higher-order thinking and logic. This region does the heavy lifting when you override an immediate craving. As these regions communicate, your brain adapts in 2 distinct ways. It can grow brand new neurons and synapses, known as structural plasticity, or it can move a specific task from a damaged area over to a healthy one, which is called functional plasticity. Mental resilience is a measurable, physical state of communication between the logic of your prefrontal cortex and the emotional alarms of your amygdala. It operates as a biological mechanism, independent of your baseline personality. Younger brains are naturally more plastic, but age is rarely a strict barrier to change. A much stronger predictor for an adaptable brain is a rich, highly stimulating sensory environment. To maintain that adaptability, your system requires 3 basic inputs. You need quality sleep to consolidate memories, you need baseline nutrition to provide raw materials for building synapses, and you need cardiovascular exercise to push blood flow up into the cranial vault. You cannot outthink a biological deficit. Before you try to rewrite the neurological software, you have to provide the physiological fuel. Once the physical baseline is set, you can manually trigger neuroplasticity. Step 1 is the novelty trigger. By learning a completely unfamiliar skill, like picking up an instrument or a new language, you force your brain to lay down entirely new physical pathways. As you reinforce these fresh routes, they give your brain a physical way to detour around the older, well-worn negative loops that used to trap you. Step 2 requires a practice called metacognition, simply thinking about your own thinking. Practices like thought journaling or meditation actively recruit the prefrontal cortex. As upper executive regions observe raw emotion, they physically turn down the dial on the amygdala's stress responses. The third step is applying continuous cognitive friction. Engaging in complex problem-solving or strategy games forces your neural networks to remain flexible as they age. This capacity for self-directed change is the biological foundation of a growth mindset. It demonstrates that the brain is not a static machine, but a dynamic system that requires constant development to stay healthy. John Henry Newman summarized this principle when he wrote that growth is the only true evidence of life. You are not a victim of your genetic hardwiring, and you are not permanently stuck with your worst habits. Through conscious repetition, learning, and physical care, you are the active architect of your mind, fully capable of building a resilient brain.